Thank you. I was in this session last year, was intrigued, visited with Jim, and then this summer they put out a call for people to volunteer to tear it apart, and I foolishly electronically raised my hand, and here I am. First thing I'm going to say is Turning Grain into Dough publication. Read the first 5 pages. If you do nothing else, read the first 5 pages. It's the best description of transitioning to organic on the financial side I've ever seen. Paul did a great job with this. So Abby is handing out my old school slides. We were having some technology problems, so I'm glad I brought them. So what I did is when I started working with this for this presentation, I decided I needed to establish a baseline year of what the farm currently looks like. So year one I set as 2019, and for this example I used a 720 acre corn, soybean conventional rotation. I built the budgets for those. They happen to be listed under transition because I didn't have anywhere else to put them, but that told me where we are to start. From there, we then start transitioning, and on this example, I used a 3-year transition, 1/3 at a time. It's fairly aggressive, but it fit within the number of years we had to work with. This gives me, by starting with the baseline, it gives me a whole farm view, and it makes the allocation of equipment on a per acre basis much easier. So that is our first page. So 2019, conventional corn, soybeans, and then as you can see, as we go down through there, I'm taking 1/3 at a time through transition. Page 2, this is just kind of a little bookkeeping thing. I like to break things up. You can see where between conventional, transitional, organic, I was leaving some white space. What I found was if I didn't put zeros in there, there were some issues when we got to the summary. So that's why I marked that in purple. If you happen to do that, put zeros in as placeholders. Page 3 is the fun one. We get to play with our various crops. So I just used a basic, yes, Margaret?
What do you do with the buffer areas? Do you have that on page 2?
I'll get to that. So for the various crops, we have the conventional corn, soybeans. I used a very basic cropping rotation for the organic of a oats, corn, soybean rotation. Starting the rotation transition with the small grains, corn, and then the year 3 soybeans. This is where we get to play. A little homage to the Veggie Compass. So I put in zucchini, arugula. Put in whatever you want. This is where we play with this. Remember buffer areas. For organic certification, we have to account for them separately. I make them a separate line item. On our operation, we mow them. Occasionally, we made hay from them. I have never row cropped my ends. The bookkeeping was just something I didn't want to, and this cleaning of equipment and whatnot, I didn't want to deal with. But remember, you have to account for those. Next page are the assumptions. This is the less fun page. So I put in some assumed yields for the conventional, transitional, organic. I just left the buffers blank. Do with that what you feel you need to. And prices. Be conservative. If you have a conservative plan and you exceed it, everyone is happy. If you have an aggressive plan and you fall short, your lender's not happy. So be conservative. Another reason is stuff happens. It seems like every year we have one field that just underperforms. So just be aware of that and don't get too carried away. On the expenses page, I used organic soybeans as an example of some rather current costs. I did not change the price of the inputs. I'm not using it as a yield goal. I'm saying, okay, this is what we're going to spend. Then when we get to playing with the farm income pages later, it will show us that at various yields. Anyway, so I'm not changing that. I put in a typical set of field operations for organic soybeans. If you don't have your own costs, the machine cost calculator is a great one. Another option that I have been using is I take the Iowa State. They have the estimated machinery costs publication that the Compass refers to, but also in Ag Decision Maker, there's an Iowa Farm Custom Rate Survey each year. So it will give an average charge for each operation. And then I just do a manual breakdown. When I compare the machinery cost estimates to the custom rate survey, what I find is my variable costs are approximately 55% of the custom rate. So that's the number I use. I take custom rate times 55%, and that's what I enter for my variable costs, with some adjustments. A good example is combining small grains. On the custom rate survey, it says it costs less per acre than corn or soybeans. 25 years of experience tells me that I disagree with that. If my combine breaks down, it's because of abuse of oats, which is the hardest crop we have. It's very abrasive. It's a high humidity time of year. You will occasionally slug the combine and ruin a drive belt. If I ruin a drive belt, it's always doing oats. Yes?
So in the costs here, you went to the machinery cost calculator and then you just multiplied that?
Yes. If you go to the Ag Decision Maker and download the Iowa Farm Custom Rate Survey, yes. It's a faster, but I've been doing this long enough that I have a pretty good feel for what my costs are. So I just went and did a quick breakdown and said, okay, 55. If you have a newer line of machinery, the variable's probably a little bit, maybe 45 to 50% of the total, or the cost of ownership, so would be a little higher. On my 20-some-year-old line of machinery, the 55% is variable. It seems to be a good fit.
And then on the previous one, just a quick question. You didn't put anything for straw or stocks. Have you used that tool? You didn't use it for this example, but have
right. Yeah, I didn't want to get too much stuff in here, so I just left that out. Add it. The gross profit page, I highlighted the transitional years. Because the question that popped up when I was looking at this is, okay, it shows the gross profit on transitional oats to be a minus 224 and then a minus 26 on transitional corn. So the first question is, well, why not start transition with corn? My experience is corn is the crop least willing to adjust to shocks to the system. So I do not start with corn. It has been a disaster every time we've done it. So my experience tells me that using transitional corn in T1 year, the loss will be greater than if I use a small grain. Whereas in the T2 year, where it's following oats with a legume underseeding, it seems to do okay. So That's why that is highlighted. Next page, again, just a reminder, do what you will with your buffers, but don't forget, because you're paying rent to either a landowner or yourself for those acres. Equipment page. So I put in a fairly common line of equipment for row crop operation in our area, with a few additions. I'm a Gandy Orbit air seeder because we've been using that for cover crops for a number of years. I put in the sale of one disc chisel, a tool that I have found has not been a good fit for us. Its replacements were already in our inventory, the next two lines. But anyway, it got sold a couple of months ago. When it comes to the next section on equipment to purchase, again, I put in a fairly common set of things that you might need. I circled the rotary hoe and the cultivator to remind me, buy these tools 1 or 2 years before you need them. And go out in your conventional crops and learn how they work. Trying to figure out how a cultivator works on organic corn on the 1st of June would be a very high stress scenario that none of us need. So play with them where you still have herbicide as a backstop.
Yes. How do you want to break right now?
Okay.
And the next workshop starts at 10:30.
Okay, I'm
I
almost,
have to wrap it up and
I'm almost there.
guys have a little break.
Okay, next page, infrastructure changes. I had a couple grain bins because one 100,000 bushel grain bin for corn may not be right. It limits your cropping rotation and marketing opportunities. Next page, investment. The circled years are what I look at is investment to get from where you are to where you want to be. The revenue will be less during the transitional years. So then we go to the next page. So those are what it takes to get from where we are to where we want to be. The one that has the highlight circling it is where we have recouped that investment. This is pretty common. It's about year 8 where we're back to where now we can experience the fruits of what we've done, we hope. And on the final page, how are you going to cover that shortfall or investment in the transition? Loans, and another one is when we back up to the expense pages, I always charge rent even if it's owned land, because as a land investor, I expect a return. Here, you have the option of taking the rent revenue from one of your hats, moving it to another one to help offset the shortfall. So we've zipped through it pretty quickly. If there are any questions, we can visit.